Pinehurst is often said to be the home of American golf. It's certainly true the quaint village tucked away in the woods of central North Carolina resonates ancestral energy, as if sprung from another time. Golf was still in its adolescence in the United States when James Tufts founded Pinehurst in 1895, snapping up vacant timberland by the square mile, as one writer put it, for prices that would soon buy only an acre. But the region's sandhills provided an enchanting setting for golf, and people arrived by the trainload as one golf course begat another and more after that. There are now 10 courses at Pinehurst, but similar to St. Andrews and the Old Course, the original home of golf, their energy springs from just one, the iconic No. 2 course. Like the Old Course, Pinehurst No. 2 evolved slowly into the touchstone it is today, as Donald Ross expanded and altered it nearly every summer from 1907 to 1935, when he at last was able to shape and grasp the greens. Those greens are the enduring source of No. 2's brilliance, as their elusive turtleback shapes have mystified generations of players, from professionals to plotters. Scoring well requires hitting assured shots to precise places and extreme scrambling skills, but with generous fairways and the ability to bounce shots along the ground without ever losing a ball, there's something here for everyone. This is every hole at Pinehurst No. 2. Not every first hole Donald Ross designed was a gentle handshake, but at No. 2, this is as close to a soft opening as you're going to get. Pinehurst's elevation changes are rarely extreme, and the first hole moves ever so slightly downhill with a broad fairway framed by the scratchy, wiregrass sandscapes that are indigenous to the region. The hole seems benign until you reach the narrow, perched-up green and discover the fabled sloping shoulders that deflect away imprecise approaches into either a bunker left or awkward shortgrass hollows on the right. There are days at Pinehurst when if you miss a green, you spend the rest of the afternoon trying to get the ball back on, Jack Nicklaus once said, and figuring out how to recover is absolutely the essence of Pinehurst. The straight-out first and second holes have been No. 2's opening gambit since Ross first expanded the course in 1907. Similar in appearance to the first, but longer, the second turns slightly right through what appears to be a wide-open plain of fairway and wiregrass that pinches in the farther you drive it. The shallow plateau green is cocked 45 degrees to the line of play, making it one of the most difficult to hit and hold, especially if coming in from the right. Sitting on a 3-shot overnight lead, defending champion Retief Goosen made 6 here in the final round of the 2005 U.S. Open by chipping over the green and then 3-putting, beginning a doomed stretch of golf that led to an outward 41. In 1923, Ross built a new third hole, extending east from the second, adjacent to real estate he owned along Midland Avenue. This short par 4 out of Ross's back door bends to the right around a cross bunker, making appropriate club selection off the tee critical. Some may attempt to drive the green, but the percentage play is to lay back along the right side of the fairway, leaving a clear, direct angle into one of the most fiendish putting surfaces on the course that aggressively ejects shots off the front and more punitively over the back. The long par 4 fourth was originally built in 1928 as the first hole of Pinehurst's short-lived 9-hole employees-only course. That course was quickly abandoned during the Depression, but Ross thought that this hole, along with the parallel 9th hole, was so good he adopted them as No. 2's 4th and 5th holes during his major 1935 revision. 4 is one of No. 2's most scenic holes, playing downhill through a valley framed by sand barrens and pines. The fairway tilts left to right, then cruises toward a wide, shallow green nestled into a glen with deceptive internal contours and a wicked false front ready to repel long incoming shots. For decades, the 5th was considered one of the toughest long par 4s in the country, climbing nearly 500 yards over a crest along the same canted slope that the 4th trundled down. It was not only lengthy, but a green that pitches hard right to left and back to front, redirected long second shots that didn't carry deep enough onto the putting surface into the front left bunker or even down into the pine straw at the bottom of the hill. For the 2014 U.S. Open, it was converted to a 576-yard par 5, and the par switch with the 4th hole, which used to be a par 5, stuck. Still a wonderful hole, the conversion makes the task of playing the 5th easier. Just tack to the high side for 3 shots and avoid going left. The tees of the 6th hole, the first par 3 of the round, used to be the far boundary of the course before the 4th and 5th holes were added. The green is large, nearly 8,000 square feet in size, but the firm domed surface that sheds off stray tee shots into bunkers left and right makes it play much smaller. Hitting this green might be the most demanding shot on number 2. It certainly was during the 2014 Open, when the 6th played as the course's most difficult hole in relation to par, as well as the most difficult green to putt. The temptation at the par 4 7th is to choose something off the corner of the dogleg where the sandscape juts in, but missing right leaves you in some of the most choppy, volatile sand on the course, and the entry to the green actually opens up to an approach from the left. One long-standing criticism of Pinehurst number 2 was that it lacked beauty due to the monotonous, monochromatic presentation of Bermuda roughs added in the 1970s. In 2010, Bill Coore, a native North Carolinian who played the course in his youth, restored the artful tapestry of hardpan and wiregrass transitions with partner Ben Crenshaw, reviving the stuff, as he calls it, and giving the course the colorful, contrasting texture of sand and rough edges it was always meant to have. After charging out and back through the first 7 holes, the 8th detours to the left. Guests play it as a par 5, but it's a 500-yard par 4 during the U.S. Open, with a fairway that banks like a racetrack left to right, then right to left. Downslopes off the back side of the 2 bunkers short of the green can help you work balls in from either side, and the naked putting surface is surrounded by Pinehurst's quintessential defenses: short grass and steep slopes. Knowing what side to miss greens at number 2 is the key to keeping around together, and going left or long at 8 can jettison the ball 20 or 30 yards away and lead to comical attempts at getting it back up to the putting surface. Just ask John Daly, who practically gave up trying while taking an 11 here during the 1999 Open. Many golfers think that Donald Ross typically built the kind of convex greens found at Pinehurst. That's not true. In fact, he didn't even build them here. His original grass greens, converted from flat sand discs in 1935, were shaped low and flowed into the surrounding swales and shoulders, not above them. But decades of routine sand top dressing gradually raised their interior sections by as much as a foot, giving them unintended mushroom shapes. Later alterations accentuated the outer banks of the greens in ways Ross couldn't have imagined, but the roll-offs and subsequent recovery conundrums turned out to provide fascinating playing characteristics, and time and reputation have locked the changes into place. Far from being typical Donald Ross greens, Pinehurst number 2s are actually unlike anything else he built. The par 3 9th spans across a low valley and calls for a short to mid-iron tee shot that must find the correct level of what is essentially a shallow island green broken into high left and low right sections. Putting between the 2 levels requires perfect pace, but it's not as treacherous as missing the green short-sided on the left, and shots that don't secure the center of the lower section will also find slopes that shoot the ball off the front and right edges of the green. The 617-yard 10th looks wide open and rather simple, but 3 staggered fairway bunkers gooseneck the fairway of the second landing zone, complicating the decision about how and from where to attack the green. The key to the hole is the way it bends left at the end, the result of Ross moving the green 80 yards back, which brings pines and the last cross bunker on the left into play. 2 traps flank the opening of the wide tri-cornered green, but there's enough room to run a shot up in between them, as Ben Hogan proved during the 1951 Ryder Cup, when on his 3rd shot after pitching out of the pines, he roped a 280-yard 2-wood through the gap, then sank a 60-foot putt, causing his opponent to proclaim in anguish, "What do you have to do to win a hole from this man?" You may not find a better collection of 4 consecutive par 4s than the run of 11, 12, 13, and 14 that fan out like an accordion, each distinct from the next, despite playing over mostly flat, homogeneous terrain. 11 sweeps right around the scruffy sand into one of number 2's largest greens, set as low to the ground as any other. Once again, hole location matters. If the pin is set in the back half of the putting surface, a line down the right yields an approach that won't have to fly the 2 standalone greenside bunkers. If it's placed on the right or right corner, the angle opens up with the drive down the left. Just remember, the miss here is either to the right of the green or long. Like the 7th, the desire on the 12th is to take the tee shot down the right to shorten the approach. There's nothing wrong with this play, as long as the drive avoids the wiregrass that, as players in the 2014 Open and 2019 U.S. Amateur found out, is just as likely to result in a stymied shot as a clean lie. The best angle into the offset green, however, is from the opposite side near the cross bunker jutting into the fairway 150 yards out. The green doesn't possess significant surface contour, few at Pinehurst No. 2 do, but it's a beauty, being shaped and set against a backdrop of pines with an intriguing thumbprint depression on the left that must be negotiated on shots missed to that side. Ross located these 4 par 4s early in the development of No. 2, and they've changed very little since, their tees and greens located almost exactly where he first placed them in 1907. The green side of the 13th is inspired, set atop a sand ridge that borders the first tee of the No. 4 course. 13 is also one of No. 2's most strategically interesting holes, offering abundance of safe fairway to the left that leaves an uphill approach that must carry a deep fronting bunker, while the option of driving over the wash of sand on the right will result in a shorter, more direct shot into the small, blind, exposed green. There's room to miss long here, but anything short will back up into the bunker or tumble all the way back down to the fairway. The 14th is another example of how Pinehurst's basic ingredients of sand, native grasses, longleaf pines, and gentle elevation change can be scrambled into distinctly different holes. The 473-yard par 4 plays off the same ridge as the 13th green to another wide fairway that begins to narrow at the 300-yard mark. Core and Crenshaw didn't move bunkers, but they did flash sand up their faces as Ross originally did, and melted their back edges into the wiregrass surrounds. 3 of these motley specimens act like fingers and thumbs throttling the entrance of the green, which is kicked up high in the rear to receive low trajectory approaches. Unlike the last hole, short here is the best miss, as the mesa-like putting surface falls sharply off to the left, right, and behind. Ross paid as much attention to the shapes in the ground at the front and sides of the greens as he did to the greens themselves, anticipating most players would be bouncing shots into them. Though holding the small, crowned putting surface at the par 3 15th is less troublesome in the age of 195-yard 7-irons, the subtle mounds and moguls in the foreground can still be used to guide balls onto the putting surface as long as the gaping bunker that eats directly into the right edge is avoided. Payne Stewart bogeyed the 15th in the last round of the 1999 Open to fall 1 stroke behind Phil Mickelson, setting up one of the Open's most memorable duels coming down the closing 4-hole stretch. The par 5 16th features the only water hazard at Pinehurst in the form of a small pond off the tee, though a drive of just 150 to 180 yards will clear it for most players. Assuming that piece of business is taken care of, the next question is how to handle the second shot, and particularly the bunker lurching into the landing zone, exactly where you'd want to position your ball for a clear shot into another small green that slopes from a deep bunker on the right to another on the left. Designed for a lofted approach, the putting surface is an even more elusive target for the pros when the hole is a par 4 during Opens. The green at the par 3 17th is angled 30 degrees and calls for a high left-to-right shot to a putting surface pitched toward the tee at the front and pitched away at the back. Before the rebuilding of the bunkers or restoration of the sandscapes, the 17th green blended into a sea of fairway, Bermuda roughs, and grass-faced bunkers. It doesn't any longer, with the front hazard flashed prominently into the putting surface and a higher brow of sand and wiregrass defining the back left horizon. A good line for most tee shots on the par 4 18th is the red-shingled pergola on the left side of the clubhouse. The drive is uphill to a left-to-right moving fairway, and the key is to advance the ball far enough so the bunker 15 yards short of the green doesn't come into play. Hole location factors prominently, and a depression running through the center of the green can exacerbate 3-putts, a nerve-wracking scenario when performing in front of the usual lunchtime crowd on the adjacent veranda. It didn't, of course, bother Payne Stewart, who in front of a much larger crowd calmly canned his 15-foot putt for par and celebrated his second U.S. Open title with a one-of-a-kind fist thrust that's now memorialized in a statue of him that looks out over the green. The originality of Pinehurst No. 2's architecture, and particularly the vexing greens, is the result of intelligent design, time, and accident. Whether by planning or providence, No. 2's greens have become beautiful, beguiling works of art, arguably the best in American golf. Because of them, the design achieves the game's ultimate ideal as the rare course that can squeeze blood from the mightiest golfers straining to shoot 70 and then turn around to provide invigorating possibilities for the 20 handicappers in the next foursome. Donald Ross spent nearly 50 years at Pinehurst, refining both his ideas and the golf courses. And even though happenstance has played a role, number 2 can be viewed as the cumulative expression of his genius. Perhaps all that needs to be said is that Ross himself, that sternest of Scots, considered Pinehurst number 2 to be his masterpiece. To paraphrase the writer Charles Price, nobody's arguing with him.